Hi, this is Tom Soane. You know what? It might actually be a good time to sell your property. And I know that a lot of landlords are thinking that. Should I sell my property? Should I keep my property? Should I ride out this current mortgage interest rate craziness? Or should I get rid of my property or properties and cash out, so to speak? Well, it's a definite option. And it might actually be a good idea to look at selling your property or your properties or some of your properties, and I'm going to explain why. And I'm also going to tell you about what I'm doing as well, because I have a definite strategy to try and get me through these mortgage interest rate hikes. They've doubled in the last few months, which is absolutely crippling to a lot of people. And I'm feeling the pain too on a couple of properties that I bought before the mortgage interest rate hikes that I then wanted to refinance, and it's proving difficult. So I'll explain about how that is going in a second. But first of all, when the mortgage rates go up like they have, then obviously our mortgage payments are going to go up like they probably already are for a lot of people. And what it does, even if you're still making profit, what it does is it makes things tighter. So especially if you've started to rely on the income that comes from your rental property or properties, if you're relying on that income and now all of a sudden you've lost another few £100 a month, well, that's actual loss of income, especially if you've got used to that. So then there's the other problem, isn't there? Because, you know, if you're a landlord and you're looking after your property yourself and you're trying to deal with everything yourself, well, then you also have a cost of living issue as well, because the cost of living has rocketed up as well. So that rental income that actually you thought, oh, thank goodness I've got this rental income coming in, because otherwise, you know, I might find these energy bill increases a little bit of a pinch. Look, others of you will be more wealthy and perhaps don't have so much of a cash flow issue, but if you're any kind of intelligent with money, then you will notice these things. You will notice your increased cost and your decreased income. Cost of labor has gone up. Cost of property maintenance has gone up. It's all gone up. So this is a real option for a lot of people, and a lot of people are thinking, should I just sell? Should I just get out of property? Because it's a bit of a hassle now, it's a bit of a stress. So first of all, this started because I had a chat with a guy who's having a bit of difficulty with his portfolio, and the options that we went through, I analysed his portfolio with him. We went through it from top to bottom, and we analysed which properties might be good candidates for selling in order to balance out the other properties and the other mortgages, and to provide good enough cash flow with low enough expenditure whilst maximising on the rent income that is already coming in and optimising the expenditure as well. It's just like a business, isn't it? If you optimise your expenditure or you decrease your expenditure, you maximise your guaranteed income, and then you work out your profit margins to make sure you stay profitable, well, that's the right way to do it. And everybody should treat their properties and their portfolios like a business in that way. Anyway, so we analysed this portfolio and worked out that actually there's a few properties here that will need to be sold. So that's what we're going through that process of now. And because they're all tenanted, so he's using my landlord to landlord property sales service, which, you know, it's been about 2 and a bit years since I launched that, and I still haven't thought of a better name for it. It's actually part of my property broker, which you've heard me talk about quite often, I hope. Anyway, so that's what we're doing. And then that sparked me to think, well, you know what, I'm talking to people every single day that are thinking about selling their property or not. So I guess the answer is, look, you might be able to look at your properties and work out which ones to sell, which is going to give you an amount of cash, hopefully through the equity. And that amount of cash might prompt you to pay off a little bit more of your mortgages on the other properties. And then that hopefully reduces your expenditure enough to protect your cash flow. Now, you're going to have to remember one thing here. And by the way, I'm going to come back to people with one property only in a second, but you're going to have to remember one thing here. We are in a difficult financial time. So 2 years ago, you might have been making £500, £400 a month profit. Well, right now, you should focus on making £200 because we are in a financially difficult time. I do think it's a mistake to try and recreate those glory days from a couple of years ago where you were making some really good profit. Now, yeah, rents have gone up as well. Now, rents haven't gone up as much as mortgage interest rates have gone up, but rents have gone up. So if you focus on just being profitable, then it might allow you to look at your portfolio in a different way and work out what properties you can sell, what properties you can keep, what mortgages you can balance out, so pay off a little bit of some mortgages, pay off a bit more of others. You might have some mortgages on your properties that are better rates than others, so it might be worth taking advantage of that. So that's the first thing. For anybody who's got a portfolio, analyze it, work out which properties you might be able to sell, and just calculate it and see if it's going to be worthwhile or not. People with one property are in a bit of a different situation because if you've got your cash in that property, but now it's become non-profitable because of the mortgage rates going up, and I've seen some real difficult situations.
I'm interrupting with an important request. Use my lettings team to find your next tenant, to fully manage your property, or both. It doesn't matter whether you've already got a letting agent and you fancy a change, or you just want to find a good tenant. Email me direct. It's tom@soanegroup.co.uk. Or use my property team to find you a good buy-to-let property. Off-market, below market value, high yield buy-to-let properties. Join my buy-to-let VIP list and we'll send those buy-to-let properties straight to your email. Again, contact me direct. It's tom@soanegroup.co.uk, or you can message me through my Facebook page or just comment below and we'll contact you.
Like for an example, somebody who's normally paid 350 quid on a mortgage and their property rents out for 750 quid, so they're quite comfortable. They're making £400 a month. That's been quite easy and comfortable for them. I'm generalising here, there probably are other costs, but let's just say you're quite comfortable making £400 a month on your property, whether you've been using that as income or accumulating it and saving it. Well, now all of a sudden that £350 mortgage payment is now a £700 mortgage payment. So actually, once you've paid your tax, you're not making anything. In fact, I'd be surprised if you weren't losing a bit of money each month. So you're obviously people in those situations who are making very little, if any, profit, or you're losing money. Well, you're definitely thinking about selling, without a doubt. Now, you might not be thinking it with any conviction, but it's definitely a thought in your mind. You're thinking, do you know what, should I just sell this? But there are a few factors, of course. If it's tenanted, then they're a bit more difficult to sell unless you use something like my company or whatever. But you can't really sell them on the open market. Difficult to sell on the open market if it's got a tenant in there because you're only really advertising to investors. But also you probably don't want to go through the eviction process, which is a bit of a ball ache. But you've also got to make the right decision for your family, for you, for your business, your property business. So that's why I said at the beginning of this, it might actually be a good time to sell. Think about this another way. If you're losing money on your property and you're losing money which is anything more than normal inflation, then it might well be a good time to sell. The reason I say that is because if your money sits in the bank and it's going down in value at the normal rate of inflation. And what that means is that inflation is obviously, in a nutshell, it's the amount stuff costs. So £100,000 today will only buy you 100,000 loaves of bread. In 2 years' time, £100,000 might only buy you 80,000 loaves of bread because the cost of that bread has gone up, but your £100,000 has not. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Anyway, so if you're losing money on your property at a rate that's higher than inflation, then you are definitely in the position where you need to consider selling. because you can take your £100,000 out, or whatever equity you've got in that property, you can take that out and you could do something different with it. Now, if you've got a business, you might decide to take that £100,000 out and buy another company. And I'll tell you why I've told you that in a second, because I'm going to tell you about what I am currently doing with my portfolio. Some of you might be quite surprised. It goes against something I said a little while ago. Anyway, so yeah, you might decide to buy another business, or you might decide to invest in your existing business, or if you're not a business owner, you might decide to take your money out and buy a different property, maybe in a different area, one that you've calculated is going to make profit even with the current mortgage rate. Or you might actually decide to stick it in your bank for 6 months, because I personally think, I'm putting my neck on the line here, aren't I? I personally think that mortgage rates are going to balance out in the sort of up to around the halfway mark of 2023. I think that's when the rates are going to balance out. I think we're going to continue with high rates until maybe April 2023, maybe a little bit into May. And then when we start hitting June, that's when you'll see the rates coming down. Now, that is a bold statement, I know. That is what I think. So that's what I think is going to happen to mortgage rates. So you might think, well, okay, I'll take the cash out, I'll keep hold of it for a bit, and then when the mortgage rates start balancing out, then I can revisit. And I also think that we're going to see a little bit of a balance out with property prices. Now, addition to that, I don't think property prices are going to plummet. A lot of people are saying that prices are going to crash. I don't think they're going to crash. But I do think they're going to get back to the similar sorts of prices that we saw in, say, 2020, 2021, that sort of area. So in my area of Portsmouth, I think we're going to see about a 10% decrease in value. And that's all right, because, you know, for a lot of people, a buy-to-let property is a long-term investment. So if it goes down 10% next year, then it's probably going to go up by 50% in 10 years or whatever. You get my point? Hopefully you do. So anyway, back to what I was saying. Yeah, I drifted off on a tangent, I know. That's me, that's the way I do it, but hopefully you're still getting some good tips and some good content from this. So yes, you are definitely going to be considering selling your property. You might decide to get your cash out, put it in your bank, and see when the mortgage rates balance out and the property prices balance out. To be honest, it wouldn't be the worst idea that you ever had. Now, it's not the best idea you ever had. Actually, the best idea you could ever have with cash is to try and make more cash, to try and bring in cash flow, to try and make a return on investment. Now, there are other people that have a property, maybe their properties are in a good area that they think is going to grow in value over the next 10 years, 20 years, whatever it might be. Now, in those cases, it might not be worth selling your property, especially if you don't rely on that cash flow. You've got to see it as an investment. It's a 20-year investment, or whatever the term is that you initially thought of. It's a 20-year investment, for an example. And so you've got to work out, what is that return on investment over 20 years? The answer is probably it's going to be good. It's going to be positive. So you could even look at this as a 20-year investment. If you're going to lose £50 a month for the next 2 years, for an example, then that's 1,200 quid that you're going to lose. But over the grand scale, over the grand scheme of 20 years, well, you're probably going to make a lot more than 1,200 quid. So this might be a reinvestment in your existing investment so that you can keep hold of it. In the same way that if your boiler blows up, you're going to pay out 1,500 quid for a new boiler. You're reinvesting in your investment. So I'm giving you all the options here, and I'm sorry, I meant to tell you what my story is and what I'm about to be doing and what I'm currently doing. And I will do that, I promise. I want to try and keep this below 20 minutes. Good luck. But it might be a case that you've got to reinvest in your existing investment in order for you to be able to keep it. If it's a good property and you like it and you're comfortable with it, normally it's a good yield, might be worth keeping. So I want you all to try and plan for getting through the next couple of years. You're not going to be enjoying the profits that you have if you've got a mortgage. You're not going to be enjoying the growth in property prices like you have. But that's only going to be for relatively the short term. So just focus on getting through that period of time, making whatever profit you can, reducing expenditure where you can, increasing income where you can, and all of that without sacrificing your time, without sacrificing your energy. There's no point in you, to be honest, there's no point in any landlord managing their own property. I find it peculiar myself, but everyone's different and everyone's each to their own. The reason I find it strange is because nobody ever got into property investment so that they could become a letting agent or a tenancy manager or look after maintenance and things like that. I suppose there are a couple of building firms that have bought properties and will do all the maintenance themselves, but they didn't become landlords so that they could be tenancy managers and deal with all of that crap. Anyway, yeah, so what am I doing? So a while ago, I was quite vocal when I said about, don't panic, don't sell your properties, don't jump out of your properties. And then what I'm doing is selling my properties. But there's a reason. And there's a reason I said don't sell. And it's the reasons I was just giving you. It's not always the best thing to just jump into a sale, but you have to calculate it. Now, it's okay, by the way, it's okay if 6 months ago I said, look, don't sell. And, 6 months ago I said, look, it might not be a good idea to sell. Think about the long term, think about the long-term investment. And then for me to change my mind. I know, it's mad that somebody might change their mind. Well, look, let me put it to you a different way. Every single successful business on the planet has to adapt, has to change and move with the times. You have to keep an eye on what's going on in your industry, in your market, with your customers, with your products and services, and adapt. And that's what I've done. So I looked at my portfolio and I worked out that there are 4 properties in my portfolio that I'm going to sell. And I'm selling them as we speak. And what I'm planning to do is, with some of that cash, I'm going to reinvest in other properties. And with the other part of that cash, I'm going to invest in my company. One of those investments is going to be a new company acquisition. So I'm buying another letting agency. That will be my 6th letting agency that I've bought. They're all based around the south, which is where I'm from. And the other investment in my business is that I've launched an add-on service to my business, which effectively is an expansion of my property broker. So I will be sourcing with a great team of sourcing agents. I will be sourcing buy-to-let properties and flip-to-let properties, or buy, refurbish, for finance. Anything that needs a refurbishment that you can buy it and rent it out. I'm focusing on the rental property investments. Later on, I may well get involved with HMO, serviced accommodation, student accommodation, developments and land. But right now, it's all about buy-to-let. It's all about buy-to-let and flip-to-let. And by the way, a flip-to-let is basically just where you buy it, do it up, let it out. So that's what I'm investing in. But what I did was calculated. It wasn't a panicked sell. It wasn't a panicked decision. It was a calculated decision based on actual numbers and actual facts. I worked out, if I reduce this mortgage or sell these properties, reduce these mortgages, invest in these assets, then that will produce a better cash flow, and that will increase my cash flow, it will increase my net worth, and that's the way I calculated it. Now, the best part about that is that it might not mean that that's what I stay with in the long term. I might decide in the future that, great, that got me through this couple of years. Now I'm going to reanalyze, I'm going to reinvest, I might decide to invest in other things. So I'm reasonably heavily invested in the stock market. I may well put some money into that. I'm invested in crypto, which isn't going great at the moment, but that's a long-term investment for me. So I may well put some more into that. The point I'm trying to get to is that you are a property investor. Whether you decided to buy a property on purpose as an investment, or you inherited a property, or you moved out of one property and moved in with a partner and decided to keep the one you moved out of, however you became the owner of an investment property or a landlord, at some point you made a decision to be a property investor. You made a decision to have a property investment, so therefore you are a property investor. You could have sold that property and taken the cash, but you decided that you were going to keep that cash in that property, and therefore you're a property investor. So we must think like property investors. We must think like investors, and we've got to continually calculate and analyze. And it's not always about gotta make loads of profit. What it's about is, yes, you've got to make profit because that's your responsibility as a landlord. And as a property investor, you've got to make profit so that you can maintain and suitably look after your property investment, because your tenant, who is your customer, you want them to stay, you want them to keep paying, you want them to value your property. So that's the same as any business. That's why I always say property is business and business is property, because you've got to look after your customer. You've got to give them a good product that they want to pay for and that they are happy to pay for, and you've got to give them a good service so that they stay with you for the long term. That's business. You've also got to make profit so that you can do all of those things and provide the best service and provide the best product and so on and so on and so on. So anyway, back to my original point, which I've drifted well away from. Well, kind of haven't. I'm just talking about the topic really. New target, by the way. I'm going to try and keep this to 25 minutes now. But anyway, look, have a look at your property or properties and work out what you've got to do to stay profitable for the next, let's just be generous, 5 years. That will help you make a better decision about what is best for your family's investments and assets and your net worth. Net worth is great, by the way. You should always look at your wealth in that way. It helps you make better decisions. What is the best thing I can do for my wealth, for my family's wealth? Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. Look, if you want to talk to me and my team about landlord to landlord property sales service, there are currently a lot of property investors that are buying tenanted properties. It's actually quite interesting. People that just need to put their cash into a property so that they can start earning from day one. So if you want to talk about that, then get in contact with me. Same details as always, tom@pinkstreet.co.uk, or you can get me on any of my social media or message me through that. But anyway, I'll keep you posted about how my sales are going if anybody's interested. But until the next time, I will speak to you soon.
Hi, this is Tom Soane, and I hope you found that useful. Now, my next video is right there, or you can subscribe and follow for more videos just down there. Or if you want to book a call with me and my lettings team or my property team, then you can just click right there. Speak to you soon.